all I can say about Milwaukee, Texas is didn't I call it that it was going to be Texas? I went for the underdogs, and at least in that series, it's kind of working out.
I feel like you said Texas in 5, though, and so far it might be. I feel like Texas in 2 is not understating it.
At least I called Texas.
Hello, and welcome to episode 26 of Calder's Calling, the Calder Times flagship podcast, and your premier podcast destination for everything surrounding the American Hockey League. My name is Jay Foster. I'm joined today by Corey Swartz and Deana Weinheimer. We've got a full squad again this week, which is very exciting. Before we kick things off, we've got a lot to talk about. If you're not already subscribed to us on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube, go ahead and do that now. If you're currently watching on YouTube, leave us a like, leave us a comment, hit the little bell button down below, and you'll get notified every single time there is a new episode of Calder's Calling or of Taps, our other podcast on the Calder Times network. Before we get started, I also want to thank our show sponsor, Document Doctors. While not on the ice, they can help you and your business optimize and increase your revenue and profits to a bigger slice. Check out documentdoctorsllc.com and don't forget to mention the Calder Times sent you to them. Let's get started with our 3 stars of the week. We're back to 3 stars of the week because the AHL has the schedule has been really weird. They played Wednesday through Sunday and then took a weekend, Monday, Tuesday. They will get started again tonight, I believe, as of the time of this podcast going out. So back to 3 stars of the week because we haven't had a full round. Corey, which Hershey Bear are you picking as your star this week?
I'm giving it to 3 of them, and I'm giving it to the Bears' fourth line, I should say, checking line of Matt Strome, Henrik Rubinski, and Bogdan Trineyev. I kind of love this trio because it's the guys raised by Riley Sutter, who is currently not able to play due to a lingering shoulder injury, I believe he's dealing with, upper body at the very least. But these 3 guys have kind of all been cut from the same cloth. They're all kind of penalty kill, role player kind of guys. Trineyev and Rubinski are 2 young guys that, are essentially remaking their Calder Cup debuts. Rubinski was there last season but didn't play in the playoffs. But he has 2 playoff goals, guys, and all 3 of those guys have kind of him, Trineyev, and Matt Strome have all kind of chipped in on those goals as kind of the penalty kill, role-playing, heart and soul guys. Rubinski's goal was the game winner, I believe, in Game 1. Game 2, I believe it was only the 3rd goal of the game, so, a little bit of the insurance goal there. But I love those 3 guys. It's kind of nice when you have kind of a bro moment in a sense where it's all 3 of these guys connecting on goals that are, kind of creating a unique little storyline amongst what's a really potent Bears lineup offensively. It's some of the role players and depth guys getting it done.
And with a team like Hershey, I feel like when the depth guys are rolling, you got to watch out because the stars are going to be the stars. When the depth guys are rolling, then everyone's having a good time. I know I give Corey a lot of stick for always picking a Hershey Bear for the 3 stars, but I am also sticking to my brand this week. And then I believe Deana is just going on vibes, which that's kind of this podcast is that Corey is the Hershey Bears. I am goalies and Deana is just vibes. I'm going to go with Eric Portillo for my star this week of the Ontario Reign. Now, Eric Portillo is in his rookie season. He has played in 4 career playoff games in the AHL, and he is 4-0. Has, if I just pull up the stats that I didn't have ready because I am a bad podcast host, he has a save percentage of .972 right now. He's allowed 3 goals in 4 games on 108 shots. Just truly, truly bonkers stats. He's overtaken Dustin Wolf, who has allowed 8 goals in 4 games. Dustin Wolf's faced a lot more shots than Eric Portillo, but as of right now, Eric Portillo, man, I don't even know what to say about him. He has been the MVP for this Ontario Reign team, and they've had a lot of great they've had a lot of great performances in the playoffs. Like Tyler Madden has 4 goals. 2 of them have been game winners. Deana continues to do great things. Sam Fagemo cannot buy a goal, but looks really good. Grand Rapids Griffins legend Joe Hicketts has been just doing the most Joe Hicketts things, which is mostly throwing himself at people and getting assists. But Eric Portillo, the absolute gold standard MVP for this team right now. They're gonna. I didn't expect the Ontario Reign to live and die by their goaltending, but hey, they sure are.
And look at that pad setup.
Oh,
I mean, I just had to show this picture. I know it's dated from mid-January, but I could not pass up showing this picture. First of all, beautifully shot. Whoever took that picture, I assume somebody with the entire Ontario Reign. But how can you bet against somebody that has palm trees on their blocker and their glove? It's giving
the same energy as Elvis Merzlikins' Columbus Skyline pad that he had a couple of seasons ago. They're still the best goalie pads I've ever seen. But yeah, no, the palm trees, it's such a good look. And this is a guy that kind of came out of nowhere. Signed, I believe, on an ATO or a PTO at the beginning of the season. Comes out of the University of Michigan. And has just been their best goalie this season. He's been one of the best rookie goalies in the league. And he's currently, like I said, outperforming guys like Dustin Wolf. He's currently outperforming reigning goalie of the year, Hunter Shepard. Like he's doing some pretty good things. And I know it's early, small sample size, but if you're a Reign fan, or a Kings fan even, you've got to be excited about what you're seeing from Eric Portillo this offseason. Deana, let's go to a third division. Let's head on over to the Central Division for your star. Who are you going with this week?
I am going with a player for the Grand Rapids Griffins that set kind of a, not necessarily a record, but he became a part of a really elite group with his performance in the Central Division semifinals. Jonathan Berggren. So kind of a fun fact here. He became the first Griffin, but only the 13th player in AHL history to score 2 overtime sudden death goals in the same Calder Cup playoff series. So in games 1 and 3, he scored the, again, overtime goal to make the Griffins go up 2-1 on the series. And then on game 3, he actually scored the game-winning goal. So as far as Griffins fans are concerned, if Jonathan Berggren scores a goal, more than likely that means that you are going to be winning that game. So just kind of a quick look here at one of his overtime goals. Just real sneaky, but you know,
that's such an unfortunate goal.
Yeah, but it just, you know, Carter Major goes in, and it looks like I believe it was Drew Comesso on this in this game, but he goes in, shoots, it just kind of goes across the crease, but Berggren's right there, kept the eye on the puck, and there it goes. So
they ask how many, you know.
Yep, and that's 2 in overtime, which means the Grand Rapids Griffins are moving on in the playoffs and sent the Rockford Ice Hogs home in 2. But yeah, the team's resident Swedish meatball doing it well.
I feel like I only ever hear about Jonathan Berggren when he's doing something fully insane, you know? Yeah. I feel like, and I don't know whether that's just because I don't really follow the Griffins that much, but I feel like every single time I hear his name, it's always followed by he did something just truly outrageously bonkers, which is fun. I enjoy when a player just occasionally comes out of the woodwork with like, hey, he scored 6 goals in a game for the first time since 1918, you know?
Yeah, I just wish I would have brought my bobblehead from work that I got of Jonathan Berggren. I didn't think to bring him, but I'll give him a celebratory head bonk,
Just a bonk.
whenever I get into work in the morning.
Let's move on. Let's talk about the Eastern Conference, how those series are going. I feel like the Eastern Conference is mostly going kind of as expected, in that Hershey appears to be just curb stomping Lehigh Valley. Corey, can you speak to a little bit to kind of how that series is going? Is it as kind of one-sided as the scorelines have kind of made it look?
It's not quite what I would call a curb stomping. The game 2 decision looks like it was a blowout, but it was much closer, I think, than what the score indicates. I do believe that, Hershey's style of play and their, I would probably say, overall defensive responsibility and structure are really what's paying off and causing this difference here. But the first game was only a 1 goal away from from being forced into overtime. Possibly the Phantoms really pushed late. Hunter Shepard had back-to-back 30 save performances with just 1 goal against, which kind of goes underappreciated, I think, at times here. Like in game 2, he had to stop a penalty shot, and the two options, Lehigh Valley was trying to put J.R. Avon on the ice just for how skilled he's been in shootouts against the Bears, particularly this season. And they just had to settle for Bobby Brink instead, one of the up-and-coming stars of the Philadelphia Flyers in the future here, who has had some great goals and some great moments in the NHL. And, Shepard just kind of, he makes it look easy at times, a casual right pad save on a nice move on the penalty shot. So, I think the Bears were opportunistic at times. The shot count in game 2 reflects that. I believe at 31-16 was how that finished up. But the Bears were great at, capitalizing on their chances. They were selective. Todd Nelson said he wasn't concerned with the shot count for that reason, that the Bears were better at picking their opportunities. And Lehigh Valley, give them a lot of credit. Their style of, I really think it's a style of, muck and battle along the boards, win those battles, throw it to the middle of the ice, battle there some more, and try to put some pucks in. They scored both their goals from the same spot. It's just a style that I think can be taxing on your opponents, but it can be just as taxing on yourself as well. And, the Bears kind of, Nelson even mentioned it, they have to do a better job at killing those opportunities when they're in the process of happening and in close and all that sort of thing. But, give the Bears a lot of credit. They've withstood those pushes from the Phantoms, and they've been able to counter with some nice goals. And, Hershey went 1 for 7 on the power play in game 2. If they had scored 1 or 2 more, this truly would be what you would call a curb stomping. So there's a little bit of frustration for Lehigh Valley at the end of game 2. Curious to see how that's going to carry over into Wednesday's game 3. But so far, you guys had pretty good looking predictions last episode by the look of things so far. So
I'm feeling real good about my sweep prediction with this series. I'm going to knock on wood just so I don't jinx it, because then Corey will get mad at me like he did last week.
Knocking on wood, but also we told you, have faith in your team.
I do, which is why I wouldn't pick a loss, but sorry.
With that said, Corey, game 3 is tonight as of the time of people listening to this podcast. How are you feeling going into this game about Hershey? Do you see them winning? Do you see Lehigh Valley pushing back? This game is in Lehigh Valley.
It is in Allentown and PPL.
Allentown, yeah. Lehigh Valley is definitely a place. It's fine. So yeah, how do we feel about this game?
I'm confident. I mean, this Bears group, they've had success in Lehigh Valley, at least in terms of earning points. A couple shootout games didn't go their way at PPL Center over the course of the regular season, but with their full lineup here, as well as just the way they've been playing, I will say I am concerned for their start. Just to they will withstand a storm from the Phantoms, behind a home crowd here type of thing. But as long as the Bears can withstand that, getting the first goal always helps in Hershey's case. I think, they're a hard team seemingly to come back against at times once they get a lead and, really establish their structure and their game type of thing. So if you're the Phantoms, you definitely want to get that first goal. You don't want to have to count on a comeback like they did last time when they were at home against Wilkes-Barre. I think the Bears can go on the road and steal a game here, certainly. But, if you're, the Phantoms are desperate now. You know, they got frustrated at the end of game 2. They have nothing left to lose with their backs against the wall, and that's a dangerous team in a lot of ways. If you're the Bears, you know, it's kind of nice. You know, you were able to guarantee you're going to have at least one home game after this, whether that's on Sunday, on Mother's Day, in Hershey for a decisive game 5, or if you're moving on to the next round. So, you know, you're kind of, you know, the Bears accomplished what they need to accomplish here. And I think that, you know, as long as they don't play with their food, so to speak, with the Phantoms, you know, I do think they should be able to go in and take this win.
Yeah. The last game to win in the series is the hardest one, you know?
Absolutely.
But
agree 100%.
But at least, you know, Hershey, yes, that last game is hardest to win, but they have 3 games to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
yeah,
so if it all goes badly, game 3, you reset, you go again, game 4, you know?
Yeah, worst case, it's
on AHL reverse sweeps and how often they happen, because I suspect not very often, you know?
Probably not.
All teams in the last 50 years have done a reverse sweep, so...
Fair point. One of those was the Philadelphia Flyers, I always like to point out, in 2010. So, you know, you can never fully discount anybody. But, you know, the nice part about it is, you know, at worst, this could have becomes a reverse situation of what happened when the Bears and the Phantoms played in 2017, where the road team won every single game. You know, say the home team wins every game. That's still a trend that favors Hershey right now. You know, what the worst case, you know, you don't want to have to, you know, throw it on the line in a decisive game 5, certainly. But, you know, if that were to happen, it's at least nice to kind of have that in your back pocket that, hey, that would be on home ice in the event that there's, you know, you're going to have greater issues than that if you don't take care of business here in these next 2 games. But it's at least nice to have that kind of card in your back pocket for the time being, at the very least. So, again, they did what they needed to do in those first 2 games. They've had success against the Phantoms a ton in the regular season. You know, these last couple of games felt like an extension of that success in some ways. And, you know, again, you just got to go out and take care of business. And, you know, hopefully it's both games they walked away saying, hey, we could do more. You know, this could have been a higher score. This could have been a cleaner played game for us. You know, when you're still saying those things and coming away with wins like that, that's a really scary thought. And, you know, kind of still speaks to the scariness of this Bears team and, you know, why they would finish the way they did in the regular season. It's at least a great, like, you know, early sign that, hey, this team is the same team that we saw in the regular season. So I'm happy for that at the very least.
So I've got a question for you. And I know you already talked about the 4th line and what they're doing here in the playoffs. But is there anybody whose performance, either good or bad, that is surprising you so far? Granted, again, only 2 games into their postseason, but anybody sticking out?
Surprise, maybe no, but I've really liked Ivan Miroshnichenko's game so far. He, you know, is one of the guys that came down. He spent a long time up with Washington, and I tell you guys, I was at a practice earlier, and you watch this kid take slap shots. It's scary. Like he shot one that hit the crossbar, you know, went high. I thought it was going to go through the wall and it was going to go into outer space. Like this kid's got a very, very good slap shot, very good release. Was snake bitten in game 2 a couple of times. I am really excited to see his line. I believe he's still playing with Mike Vecchione, which is, you know, just a great person to be playing with, certainly. I'm really excited to see them get going and possibly, you know, again, there's 2 lines that really haven't shipped in a whole lot. And once you get those lines going, the sky's the limit. If your 4th line's been your top contributor, top line got it going last time, 4th line's contributing, just wait till the other 2 lines get going. It's a scary thought if you're an opposing team, I think, watching that side of it right now.
For sure. Let's go to the other series, which is a little bit more even, but I think is still kind of proceeding how we thought it would. So the Belleville Senators and the Cleveland Monsters are currently tied 1-1. Belleville took the first game 2-1 after a, let's say, controversial goal call for the game winner. And then
Yes.
Cleveland won in overtime on a goal by Cole Clayton in game 2. So the series is tied. They head back to Cleveland for at least 2 games, possibly 3. Deana, how are you feeling about this series?
If you would have asked me a week ago who was going to be the top scorer on the team 2 games in, I would not have picked Josh Dunn, but here we are. First of all, good for him. Like, the playoffs need a certain type of player, and Belleville is a pretty physical team, especially on defense. They are just, it's giving Rochester Americans vibes here in the later part of the season, but the Belleville Senators have been so aggressive on defense, and Josh Dunn is the perfect pairing for that kind of player. And I kind of mentioned that in my series preview about, how since he's kind of the most senior leadership, like official leadership, that the team would really be relying on him, and he is stepping up beautifully. So in his 25 games that he played in the regular season, he had 2 goals. In 2 playoff games, 2 goals. So he matched that performance, and it's just, he's shining in this role, and I love it for him. But yeah, like you said, Jay, it's kind of unfolding how I kind of thought it would be, that the team basically just needed some more time to, of course, the 10-day layoff didn't help, combined with all the roster issues in the last month and a half of the regular season, that you can tell, especially in game 1, that the communication was off. The passes weren't clean. They were bouncing off of sticks. They tried to go tape to tape and it would be a little wide. It was just not that connected compared to what we saw back in December, January, early February, where this team was just, they could do basically no wrong. But yeah, Belleville is sticking with them, but that controversial goal call, I mean, without that, we might be looking at a 2-0 series in Cleveland's favor. So game 1 back on May 1st, where Belleville won 2-1. So what happened? And this was, I hate to say terrible officiating, but this one official had some controversial calls throughout, none more so than this upheld goal. So Belleville comes in, takes a shot, and most people, at least Tony Brown, the Monsters play-by-play broadcaster, and his color commentator, Jock Calendar, Cleveland hockey legend, both thought that it went off the crossbar and out. So the referee ends up calling it a good goal. Then he immediately initiates video review to review his own goal call. Normally that doesn't quite happen. So that was a very confusing moment. And they looked at it for a decent amount of time. And I assume that they had some sort of overhead angle or in net angle where it did officially confirm that, but the ones shown on AHL TV and in the arena weren't the best views, but it definitely looked like it went off the crossbar and back out. So yeah, very controversial goal there. That was ultimately the difference maker, unfortunately, in game 1. But yeah, that's pretty much it in a very, very big nutshell. Goaltending, big difference between game 1, game 3. Game 1 was 2-1 in Belleville's favor. Game 2 was 4-3 in overtime in Cleveland's favor. So I don't know if it's a case of the goalies just needing to settle in, or if the forwards and in the offensive lines are heating up. I'm not sure, but goaltending's going to be the story to watch here.
Deana, you kind of mentioned a couple of interesting things there. I've been thinking of this and, potentially wanting to go in depth on this, on how you mentioned like the layoff. Obviously, Cleveland got a lot of players back from the Columbus Blue Jackets when their season ended. Do you think that this is something where Cleveland's just kind of warming to the task, or is it something where it's, there's maybe some rust, there's finding your footing at a different level for some of these guys? Like, do you think it's something where if you're Belleville, are you worried that, this is you're poking the bear, so to speak?
I mean, as the 2 games have gone on, I have been seeing more glimpses of that super solid team that we saw earlier in the season. For Belleville, I would start to be a little bit worried about the Cleveland Monsters and maybe not wanting to take too many liberties on them. But yeah, that break was so hard on them. And then, of course, the roster turnover, we've talked about it at length. But I think Cleveland's starting to heat up, and then going into 3 games, potentially up to 3 games at home. You get those fans in that huge arena, which I'm showing back here. It's going to be a world of difference in just the environment between CAA Arena and Belleville and the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland. It's going to be a huge difference. So that's another thing to factor into. Not only are you getting a Monsters team at home, you're getting all their fans. You know what? You can get 16, 19,000 plus. Yeah.
That was kind of my second question was, what's your prognosis on the rest of this series? You know, it obviously shifts to Cleveland for as many as 3 games. The Monsters kind of got what they needed to get in terms of getting at least a split out of the first 2 games. How do you see, do you think that's the second game, that win in overtime is a tide shifting game? Do you think it's, how does that affect the series going forward? Because if you're Belleville, you're sort of like, well, we now have to win 2 games at this really tough arena to play at rather than just 1 if they had maybe come on top in that second game.
With Cleveland, I think if it was just one of your normal goal scorers, the people that your Trey Fix-Wolanskis or whatever that would score that goal, it's more, it's good that they got the split series. They bring where Cleveland's bringing home, tied at 1 game. But it was Cole Clayton, a true heart and soul player of this team, highly respected. The fans, the team just love him, but he's the one that got it. I think just that kind of depth, energy boost is going to really be a difference maker moving forward.
Going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Trey Fix-Wolanski to pop. He has
He's got 1 assist
1
in
point.
2 games so far. I just checked.
Yeah, and they need him to be him. They need Trey to be Trey. But yeah, I'm just kind of hoping that a lot of these are just, hey, we got a super young squad. Pretty much all of them have not played in playoff contention before, as opposed to, over on the other side with Belleville, you have Garrett Pilon. Corey can talk forever about him, I'm sure, but they brought in some really good veterans that have the playoff experience. I don't know. I'm hoping Cleveland comes back, but there's a reason why they play the games.
For sure. Tonight, it'll be, like I said, tonight it's going to be interesting. I believe everyone is playing tonight. From all of this, almost all of the series are playing tonight, playing their game 3s tonight. So we'll see how it goes. But
I'm just ready for game 4.
Some of them are playing game 4. It's fine.
Well, I'm personally excited for Cleveland's game 4 because I actually get to go up to Cleveland and cover it, which will be my very first playoff coverage. So I'm super excited.
I'm very excited for that. Before we move on to our next segment, which is not a segment really, we're just going to flip to the western side of the AHL. I want to share with you guys a little bit more about one of our sponsors, and that is Document Doctors. Is your business growing beyond the 4 walls of your office? As businesses grow, so do the challenges of keeping people trained, safe, and supportive. Document Doctors, a proud sponsor of the Calder's Calling podcast and the Calder Times, offers affordable solutions to help optimize your business and keep the good times rolling. They offer content-focused solutions such as training document creation, back office process optimization, policy and procedure development, and much, much more. So support the podcast and support the Calder Times today by visiting them at documentdoctorsllc.com. Don't forget to mention us when talking to their team of contentologists. Once again, that is documentdoctorsllc.com. Shop and support small businesses today. Now, the West. One of these series is going about how I expected, if a little bit more lopsided. The other one, extremely the other direction. So let's start off with the series that is proceeding as expected, which is the Ontario Reign and the Abbotsford Canucks. Ontario is up 2-0, but I didn't expect it to be this dominant from the Reign. So they won the first game, I believe, 4-1, and then they won the second game 4-0. Abbotsford has scored exactly one goal in the series. It was Max Sasson scored. And apart from that, the Canucks have really had nothing. Like I said, the goaltending for Ontario has been the difference maker for this. 3-1, excuse me, not 4-1. But they're still outscoring the Canucks 7-1 so far in the series. Game 3 again is going to be tonight. The Ontario Reign could potentially be moving on to face the winner of Calgary and Coachella Valley, but we're not gonna get ahead of ourselves here. The Reign are looking like a team that is rolling, ready to go, and they haven't even really reached their final form yet. Like I was talking about in the Star of the Week, like Sam from Agemo had 43 goals in 50 games in the regular season and hasn't scored yet. He's, I believe, got 18 shots on goal in those 4 games, and not one of them has gone in. He had a goal overturned in game 2 versus Abbotsford. He hit the post in that game as well. Like, what are we doing here? Like, TJ Tynan is continuing to be TJ Tynan. He's got 1 goal and 3 assists so far in the playoffs. Tyler Madden is leading the way with 4 goals and 1 assist. Brent Clark is a point per game, all 4 assists, but like, it really feels like they haven't hit their stride yet. And that should worry Canucks fans. And it should also worry whoever Ontario is probably going to end up facing in the next round.
How much of this is a goaltending issue for the Canucks, though? Because Artur Silovs right now is the story in the National Hockey League with his performance for Vancouver. Meanwhile, the Abbotsford Canucks are icing Zach Sawchenko, who has seen a grand total of 6 games in the American Hockey League leading into the playoffs. So, I mean, granted, in the 6 games, he had a 2.12 goals against, a 924 save percentage. Not bad by any stretch of the imagination. But is he truly playoff ready? And is that the difference maker? Is that they don't have their number 1 goaltender in net for Abbotsford?
I mean, unless Artur Silovs is going to score goals for them, like, the games would probably be closer if Silovs was in goal. But they've scored 1 goal total over 2 games,
Okay, fair.
And Sawchenko has been good. He's not been Portillo good, but, over 5 games, so 3 games versus Colorado, 2 games versus Ontario, he's got a 908 save percentage. I think has faced the second or third most shots of any goalie in the playoffs so far. Has allowed 14 goals on 153 shots. He's doing the best he can. He is keeping the team in it. It's the fact that, you look at guys like Linus Karlsson has gone cold. Arshdeep Bains has gone ice cold. Like, no, their stars aren't producing, and their depth guys don't seem to have what it takes. Ontario, their stars took a minute to get going. It was all depth against Bakersfield, who they played in the first round. The Stars are starting to cook a little bit against Abbotsford, but the Canucks, their depth just doesn't seem to be there. I don't think it helps that their special teams are not great. So I'm just pulling up the numbers right now. The Canucks have 1 power play goal all playoffs on 13 attempts. They've got 3. They've allowed 3 goals on 17 attempts in the PK. So it's not looking super great at even strength or without. So it's just not looking good for the Canucks in kind of any way, shape, or form. But I feel kind of bad because Sawchenko was such a great story to come out of the first round. And the Reign have decided, actually, we're not interested in your fun narrative. We're just going to stomp on you until you cry.
So going back to the whole vibes thing, how did I make it this far in the season and in the postseason without realizing that Kevin Connaughton plays for the Ontario Reign?
He sure does. He is out there doing the most Kevin Connaughton nonsense that you could imagine. I know I didn't realize he was there either until I started doing my prep for covering this playoff run, and I was like, oh hey, that's why I love the AHL, because it is just every so often you're like, oh hey, that guy. Joe Hicketts is also on this team. Like I said, Grand Rapids Griffins legend Joe Hicketts. Connaughton's he's been decent for the Reign. He's still kind of mostly big as opposed to skilled, but he's getting the job done, and he's been playing in the top four for them, and it's not been going terribly. He's not producing points, but I'm not really ever looking at Kevin Connaughton to produce points. He's doing fine. He's a +3, and I hate plus minus because it's kind of a useless stat for anything except unless you look at it really in context. But he's a +3 on this team, so he's not getting shelled every time he's on the ice. He's doing fine. Kevin Connaughton is doing okay.
I don't know what to think about Atu Ratu sitting in here with he has 2 points. Whenever he was a 52-point getter across a 72-point season or 72-game season, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's kind of that's kind of been the problem, has been the guys that they needed to be hot are extremely not. I talked about Baines. I talked about Carlson. They've got Tristan Nielsen, who's admittedly he's got 4 assists in 5 games. Baines has got 4 points in 5 games. Sheldon Dries has 3 points in 5 games. But most of these points have come in the first round. If I can real quick pull up, I believe the Max Sasson goal, there was an assist that came to Sheldon Dries, and that, I believe, was the only assist of the Christian Willanen, excuse me, not Sheldon Dries. So the 1 goal and 1 assist in total from that series, and all of the other scoring is coming from all of the scoring on the stat sheet is from the Colorado series. So they've had nothing going offensively in this series so far. We'll see how game 3 goes for them.
What a change.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the most unexpected result in the playoffs so far? Which is the Milwaukee, who I had kind of picked as maybe the team to come out of the West. Or not out of the West. I know directions. The East. I can do cardinal directions, I promise. Don't edit that out. I would like that to stay in. Milwaukee is down 2-0 to the Texas Stars, which is a bit of a shocker for, I think, literally everyone. I know Deana had the Stars picked. I think she picked the Stars to win in 5. Corey and I both had the Admirals, I believe, in 4 or 5 games to win the series, and it's still possible. The series is still far from over, but Texas won the first game 6-3 and the second game 4-1. So again, it hasn't even been particularly close, and I am concerned about what's happening in Milwaukee.
All right, well, it's kind of an interesting thing. I remember when we made these predictions, I kind of hung my hat on the fact that, Milwaukee, to me, looked like they were for real after, you kind of can hang your hat on that winning streak and say, oh, yeah, this is all that, you really need to look at to say this team's for real or not. But, it's one of those things. I maybe doubted the Texas Stars a little bit too much, that they, they still have that superpower. I mean, even with, we talked at one point about how it might be, the Texas Stars were to lose. And, they pulled off that comeback. I believe I don't know who they're playing at right now. I've lost track of the NHL a little bit in recent time. But, Texas is not, sending help to them anytime soon, it seems like. So the fact that they've kind of, been able to pull off this upset and, not like Jay said, the games are not particularly close. I believe we were looking at scores of 6-3 and 4-1. It seems like they've kind of found their offensive footing, while still allowing some goals. But, that second game in particular kind of shows a little bit of, some disparity in terms of, that they not only these aren't overtime wins they're talking about, or last second wins, or 1-goal wins where they've clung to victory. They've lit the lamp a few times here. Maverick Bork, who easily probably should have been my star of the week, leading all players with, I believe we said, 6 points in 2 games type of thing. Like, it's some impressive stats going on there in terms of, the Stars, just suddenly flashing that that potential, that offensive, what's the word I'm looking for? That offensive powerhouse that they've been known to have. And we saw at different points in the regular season kind of fell off a little bit. So it's kind of a great comeback story in the playoffs in a sense.
It feels a little bit like, sorry, Deana, I know that you had a point that I want to get to in a second, but it feels a little bit like with Texas that they like tore it up in the first half of the series and then crunched some numbers and were like, you know what, we could probably take like January to March off and still make the playoffs, and then turn it back on. And that's obviously not what happened, but it does remind me a little bit of, like, you see it a little bit with teams. So like the Blackhawks did it in, like 2014, 2015, they would kind of coast through February and March, and fans would lose their minds and, they're going to fall out of a playoff spot. And, they're tired and they're cooked. I think, no, they know what they need to do to win. They know they can turn it on when it matters. You see it a little bit with Tampa Bay, recently. Colorado did it a little bit as well. And I'm not saying that this is what's happening, because that's really not how hockey players are wired. They're not wired to, coast, just like they're not wired to tank. But that's kind of what it feels like. And it feels a little bit like Texas has just decided they were so good at the first half of the series, at the first half of the season, that they can afford to lay off the gas just a little bit. And now they're in the playoffs and they're like, right, it's time to do a murder. And we're going to start with every team that begins with M. And then we'll move on to Grand Rapids.
So I believe it was last week where I asked the question, did Milwaukee peak too early? And the same question here, because I know they went on that massive winning streak earlier on, and now I wonder, did they wear themselves out? Kind of going back to Jay's point. Did they do too much earlier on to put themselves in a really good position? And now here we are in May, and they're falling off a little bit. So when I first looked at the stats for game 1, I was, I looked at shots on goal. Like, wow, okay, so Texas beat Milwaukee in shots 30-18. That's the game where they won 6-3. Like, well, no wonder why they're winning. They're really pouring on the shots and things like that. But then I go to game 2, where Milwaukee had 33 shots, Texas only had 22, and Milwaukee lost again 4-1. In total, there's only 1 shot difference between the two teams.
Yeah. Askarov has been very ordinary, potentially worse than ordinary. He's currently the worst goalie in the AHL during the playoffs right now. He's got an .840 save percentage. He's allowed 8 goals on 50 shots. So like, that's not helping. Is the Milwaukee Admirals really needed Askarov to be Askarov with a capital A, and he kind of hasn't been that. And so, but again, it's what we talked about with the Reign Canucks series, is he can't, like, I'm sure he would love to. I've seen him try. I think I've seen him score a goal actually, but like, he can't do it all. And when you're being outscored 10-4, your goalie can only do so much,
Can we talk about Curtis McKenzie for a second?
The oldest man alive? Yeah.
No.
Sorry, that was maybe too mean. Sorry, like, formal apologies to Curtis McKenzie. I am very fond of him, but every time I hear his name, I do think, oh yes, the oldest man in the AHL.
He was born in 1991.
I know, he's like 9 months. He's like 6 months older than I am, I think. But
like, oh gosh,
the oldest man alive, But that's all we've ever talked about is Curtis McKenzie, such a veteran, the oldest man in the AHL this season. and he has decided that he's gonna be second in the AHL in scoring this postseason. It's very fun.
7 points in 4 games, 2 goals, 5 assists. Now, granted, kind of going back to the age thing, he's been around in the AHL starting with the 2012-2013 season. The bulk of this is with the Texas Stars, aside from 3 seasons from 2018-19 through 2020-21, where he was with Chicago, and Utica. All but one of his playoff appearances, when we look at an entire season, has been with Texas. He has been waiting on a team like this to possibly make a long run, and suddenly it doesn't seem so impossible. I was wondering, I was really scared at the end of the season, is this going to be another Texas Stars flame out? Because we've seen it several times throughout the last few seasons, in 2022, they were out in just 2 games. 2023 didn't get overly far, and here we are, 2024. I'm getting really excited for this team.
2023. I hate to be that person, but didn't they make it to the division final?
Oh, did they? Oh, if they did,
either the division final or the conference final. I might be wrong about that. And if so,
you're probably right. And
I'm Texas to you, but
no.
I know last year was Milwaukee and Coachella Valley for the conference final.
Okay, so they made it to the Central Division final, 3-2, Milwaukee.
Yeah. So this is going to be real cathartic for them. But let's.
Yes.
How do we feel going forward with this series? Do you think Milwaukee can kind of claw back into it? Do you think Texas is going to? Again, I believe the game 3 is tonight. I don't have the schedule. Yes, it is. Does Texas do the final, the killing blow, so to speak? Does Milwaukee crawl back into this series? We talked about reverse sweeps with Hershey and Lehigh Valley. Or do you think that Texas has kind of broken the Admirals' spirit a little bit? Because they looked shell-shocked at the end of game 2.
I think they put it together for one more game at home. I mean, I think the home ice. I guess I got to stand by this because I kind of said that it's about Lehigh Valley coming home as well, even though they kind of got, shell shocked in a similar sense in game 2. That coming back in front of your home crowd, it's a reassuring feeling for those guys. I'm sure Milwaukee's been pretty good at home, I think, this season, to the point where I'd be willing to at least give them one game at home where they, restore some hope and some faith. And, that might not last for 2 more games. Like you said, reverse sweeps are incredibly hard. And, as hard as the last game is to win, I think for each team, when you're facing elimination, that weighs on you in ways that we don't even know. We don't even realize, having that creeping thought in the back of your mind is a tough one, I think, especially in these kinds of daunting uphill battles. So I'd like Milwaukee for at least one more game in this series. Maybe even 2 if they can push it all the way. But I do think that, Texas has built such a strong momentum that I'm not convinced that they're going to just roll over and say, okay, we played 2 really great games and now we're dead. They're not going to, let themselves get run over or, pull Looney Tunes and, Wile E. Coyote just crash into the wall after the Roadrunner just went through it type of thing. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, and it feels a little bit as well kind of with Ontario in that Texas hasn't even really achieved their final form yet. They are without Logan Stankoven, who is still up with Dallas for the Big Stars for their playoff series that starts Tuesday.
Starts Tuesday.
So they are, and they've got the pieces. Maverick Bourque is the man. Matej Blumel, Matej Blumel is really flying under the radar. He is a phenomenal player, and he has been killing it in this series. But because he's not named Maverick Bourque or Logan Stankoven, he was their 3rd AHL All-Star representative. So he's up there. I think he's third in the AHL in scoring right now for the postseason. But imagine this team if they get Logan Stankoven back before their postseason runs out. That's much like you don't bet against Dustin Wolf. It's tough to bet against a guy like Logan Stankoven.
I'm glad you brought up Matej Blumel because I was about to.
I love him. Like, I try not to form attachment to players in the Stars franchise for the petty reasons that I won't get into on this podcast. But he's so good, and I like him so much, and I'm glad that he is having success. I would love for it to be with literally any team that wasn't the Stars. Do we have any final thoughts? Are we enjoying this postseason? I feel like I'm having fun. I've watched a lot more of it than I normally would, obviously with my expanded beat coverage that I'm doing. But, I watched some of the Hartford Providence series. I checked in with Syracuse and Rochester. I've been having fun with the postseason. Are we enjoying it? Is it fun? Is it more fun than the NHL playoffs right now?
I've watched like a grand total of 2 games of the NHL playoffs because I'm enjoying the AHL playoffs so much. And if you haven't had a chance to check out Syracuse Rochester, which our friends over at the AHL Pre-Show will be talking about that series, but that's been so much fun. That one's been drama, but in all the good ways, especially if you're a Cleveland Monsters fan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm having fun. It's been nice. I mean, I think there's been some good upsets. There's some good drama. There's, perhaps more intrigue. I mean, I won't lie. I'm kind of the opposite. I've been watching a lot of NHL hockey as well as, keeping track of the AHL. A lot of times it's just fun to just have 2 games going on at once and being like, ooh, there's something else, just bobbing back and forth between games. And it's been a lot of fun. I've kind of enjoyed the Atlantic Division kind of having some fun upsets. All the lower seeded teams winning in kind of unusual fashions there. I agree with Jay that the Hartford Providence series has a lot of intrigue to me because of, Hartford just kind of being an upstart team. Obviously, the pre-show will be covering that one a little bit more in depth, as well as the drama of the Rochester-Syracuse series, which almost has a full week between games before they get to Game 5 on Friday, which is just kind of another oddity of the whole scene here. So very interesting. I'm having a lot of fun. Yay, hockey. More hockey, please. I'm just here for the hockey. That's all I'm here for.
We need to start merch that literally just says, yay, hockey.
Yeah, that's the Calder's Calling vibe, I think, is yay, hockey.
Yay, slogan.
That is going to do it for us this week, though, at Calder's Calling. If you want to check out our written coverage, we have coverage of every playoff team in the AHL. You can check us out online at thecaldertimes.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or at The Calder Times. If you haven't already, hit subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcasting app. Leave us a like, leave us a comment. Don't forget to tell your friends where they can find all the AHL hockey chatter their hearts desire. Finally, we'd like to extend a final thank you to our sponsor, Document Doctors. Until next week, I've been Jay Foster. That's been Corey Swartz. That's been Deana Weinheimer. We have been Calder's Calling.